So, welcome and hello to everyone here. We're so glad that you are here and interested in becoming part of the Polycoded Paper Alliance. My name is Maggie Orozco. I'm with RRS and I'll be moderating today's webinar. This info session is designed to give you a clear picture of who PCPA is, what we do, and what membership looks like, and why now is the right time to join. So you'll hear directly from current members about the value, impact, and momentum behind the Alliance. Before we get started, we're just going to review a few housekeeping items. So today's webinar is being recorded, and both the recording and the slide deck will be available on the PCPA website after the session. Because these materials will be easy to access, we are asking that no AI note takers be used on this call. All attendees are muted to keep background noise to a minimum, but we still want to hear from you. So feel free to submit questions at any time using the Q&A box. We do have dedicated time at the end of the webinar to address as many as we can. And if you run into any technical issues during the session, please let us know through the Q&A box as well, and we'll do our best to troubleshoot the issue. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started, and we're going to introduce our speakers today. So today we're joined by several Alliance members who are going to be introducing themselves before we begin. So when it's your turn, just go ahead and share your name, title, the organization that you represent, and your role with PCPA. And we'll go ahead and start with Helen.
Thanks, Maggie. Hi, everyone. My name is Helen Lee. I'm a senior consultant with RRS and one of the two co-project managers for PCPA. Shannon?
Thanks, Helen. I'm Shannon Moore. I work for Kellanova. I sit in our global R&D team, and I'm the director for our global packaging sustainability strategy. And I represent Kellanova to the PCPA Leadership Committee. I'll send it over to Jason.
Hi, I'm Jason Peltz. I am here on behalf of Carton Council, where I'm the VP of Recycling. I also am on the Leadership Council for the Polycoated Paper Alliance, and I am involved in the recovery pillar.
Hi, everyone. I'm Joel Shaning. I am a senior consultant for RRS and also a co-project manager, specifically working on the recovery stream, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And I'll hand it over to Marty.
Good day, everybody. My name is Marty Seaman. I'm the Executive Vice President at RRS, and I'm the Director of the PCPA project. Thank you all for being here today and for your interest.
Thanks. And I'd also like to recognize Scott Byrne from Sunoco. He's a member of the leadership committee who's in the audience today as well. So thank you everyone for joining us. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Marty to go over our antitrust statement.
So as all of you know, we're here really to solve an industry-wide problem, a problem facing all of industry. And so we're coming together in a pre-competitive way to see what we can do about making sure that there is a sustainable pathway for our packages once they complete their first mission. And so in that spirit, it's important to understand that all of our meetings are conducted this way in compliance with all regulations around antitrust, but especially want to avoid conversations regarding markets or market share, pricing, establishment of pricing, anything around those important competitive components. And if at any point anyone is uncomfortable, please feel free to raise your hand or to raise that. And likewise, we'll be on alert for that same kind of activity. So want to make sure everyone's clear in that. And then go ahead, next slide. And then this is, as important and very important in terms of us working together to solve that problem that faces all of the industry. And so over the years, and when we were first established, we developed these engagement principles, and there's something that we give reference to discretion around the privacy that happens in meetings and other conversations, that folks are engaged and are there to both give and to take in the sense of being full participants, that they do that participation in good faith. And while we don't necessarily do a lot of things that require a consensus or require a position as much as developing solutions, we understand that we need to be speak as one voice as much as we possibly can. Obviously, the avoidance of personal interest or company interest or anti-competitive interest is really important. And the golden rule is always a good measure for all of us. So these are principles that we abide by, and we look forward to, again, having you be introduced to those by engagement with some of our team and some of our leadership. So I think with that, I'm going to kick it to Helen.
Thanks, Marty. Good
Yep.
afternoon, everyone. Here is our agenda for today. We will start off by reviewing who PCPA is, go over our mission, our approach, and our focus. And we're going to discuss the current recycling landscape for polycoated paper, the system gaps, and the work that's been done by PCPA in phase one of our work. And we will discuss where PCPA is headed, including our work plan priorities and collaborative initiatives under our two arms, our research and our recovery work streams. We'll also have a chance to discuss with two of our leadership committee members, Shannon and Jason, and we'll discuss opportunities for you to be involved and wrap up with questions and answers at the end. Next slide. PCPA launched in March of 2023. We're a fairly new organization, and we work to collaborate towards the end goal of widespread and market acceptance, universal adoption of design guides, upgraded bale specifications, and documented flow and recovery of polycoated paper packaging materials. And our goal is simple. We want more polycoated paper, which has high quality fibers, to be recovered from the waste stream. Next. And our approach at PCPA is to work with all stakeholders from the industry and supply chain. So working with the end market buy-in, we like to say at PCPA, markets are first, last, and forever. We need the capacity from markets to manage the material and have that reliability of demand and long-term pull from buyers, which is so vastly important. Building market confidence to ensure consistency and oversight, working with MRFs to build readiness for processing capabilities, haulers, the ones who move our materials, and community buy-in to get our materials into recycling lists. And we know that our work doesn't happen alone by working with just one of these stakeholders. All of these pieces have to work together in concert to recover our materials. Next. So our focus at PCPA is to recover polycoated paper packaging of various formats, including food and beverage packaging, such as cartons, cans or tubes, tubs, such as for ice cream. And items can include food service items such as cups, plates, trays, and carriers. And I know there's a lot of interest in this room, but our focus also includes flexibles and laminates, including pouches, sachets, and various polycoated paper bags, as well as household and personal care packaging, which includes folding cartons, shipping envelopes, blister packing, and so much more. Next. And our focus at PCPA is polycoated paper that is majority paper-based and at least 50.1% paper fiber, with fibers that are primarily wood-based. The coatings can be one or two sides and may also have multi-layer in structure. Next. And in our case, the way we define poly is it's a barrier that can be either petroleum or plant-based. Our work currently does not focus at this time on wax barriers, PFAS coatings, grease barriers, or clay coated. But this is kind of the focus that we work with in terms of poly-coated paper packaging. Next. Now, I've gone through some examples of our packaging in our previous slides, but the packaging that have been kind of on a larger scale categorized includes boxes, cans and tubes, carriers, cartons, cups, flexibles and laminates, plates, trays, tubs, bowls, and other poly-coated paper packaging. Next. All right, so we wanted to share how we're organized. PCPA operates on an annual fiscal year that starts in July, ends in June 30th. We are currently almost at the midpoint, so this is a really great time for everyone here to join and benefit on the great work that we've done so far. We are organized at the top by our leadership committee. Our project management team is led by our project director, Marty. Joel and I are the two co-PMs, and again, we operate in two arms of PCPA. The research arm is where the field work and data occurs. I manage that. And the recovery arm with work focusing on the design guide, access, and markets, working with stakeholders, falls under Joel with the recovery arm. Next. So here is our leadership committee. At the bottom, you can see RRS there. RRS is a convener for the Alliance, and we're responsible for managing and executing the work that is needed to advance the mission for PCPA. And our leadership committee is made up of 6 members, including Carton Council, Graphic Packaging International, Procter & Gamble, who are co-chairs of the recovery work streams. And on the right, you'll see Food Service Packaging Institute, Kellanova, and Sunoco, who are co-chairs of the research work stream. Next. Our membership is organized into 4 levels within with the leadership committee at the very top. We have co-chairs, alliance members, and advisors at the bottom. Our membership extends to a variety of industry levels, including converters, brands, mills, associations, MRFs, universities, and we're very fortunate to have just so many organizations who are committed on propelling our mission forward to recover more polycoated packaging. I'm going to turn it over to Joel, who's going to take the system gas and recovery. Thanks.
Thanks, Helen. Yeah, I will go a little bit deeper on PCPA's origin story and some of our work planning going forward. As many of you know, and likely you're, go ahead and advance next slide. Many of you are likely familiar with the challenges that brought PCPA together. That's probably a part of why you're here. But just to give a bit of a recap, we, as Helen said, started in 2022 with a partnership of our leadership committee organizations who came together around these shared challenges, specifically the recognition that there was inconsistent and collection and recovery across communities nationwide. And that inconsistency is largely a result of incomplete data, variable messaging around polycoated paper, lack of design guidance, and inconsistent market acceptance. We really had really focused on those specific issues in what we called phase 1 of PCPA, which stretched from 2022 to the first half of 2025. Our work in that time, go ahead and advance to the next slide, included a series of studies and research. We were very much sort of research-based in phase 1. That research included bale audits, RFID testing, sortation testing, waste characterization studies, market research, repulpability tests. That all of that work was really trying to answer those initial questions, and we learned a lot. For example, we learned to a great extent, polycoated paper is in the stream, it's in the system, whether communities are specifically intentionally asking for it or not. And to a large degree, there's not a predictable, the amount of polycoated paper in a bale does not correlate tightly with whether or not communities are specifically asking for it. Similarly, with RFID testing, we learned that a lot of our materials can be successfully sorted. To a large degree, they are being successfully sorted, and with the sortation testing in a lab setting, even more of them can be sorted with appropriate investments in technology. This research in 2024, we began to realize that our context was shifting. And with the growth of EPR states, go ahead and advance to the next slide, we recognized that the next phase of PCPA would need to take on a broader scope that addressed EPR. So the challenge today includes those original questions, but really starts to focus those questions on solving the EPR challenge as well as addressing recovery in non-EPR states. So as Helen mentioned, we're really organized around these two work streams, but there's a lot of connectivity between those work streams. The demands of the EPR landscape that we learn through our recovery work informs our research work, and then we can draw on our research findings to build our engagement with CAA and state agencies and address the challenges that are coming up in as rulemaking and program plans get written in EPR states. Looking at this a bit more closely, go ahead to the next slide. In addition to our two work streams, we have our governance and communication work. Helen, did you want to touch on this, or you want me to keep going?
Sure. Yeah, as part of our work plan, this is our governance and communications. So we have monthly leadership committee meetings where LC members, they have the oversight over our budget and annual work plan. All PCPA members can participate in quarterly all-member meetings. One of those meetings is in person with social hour. This year, our upcoming member meeting will be in Nashville at the SPC Impact Conference. So we'll have it that Monday before the conference kicks off. And we also host monthly research and recovery workstream meetings where we might talk about methodology of certain field work that is to come or different deliverables and outcomes and findings. One of the things that our members have expressed to us is they really enjoy going to these workstream meetings. There's not a cap of how many members can attend. So if there's maybe a junior staff or engineer, a packaging engineer that really want to delve into a specific area of this work stream, they are more than welcome to join us. In this kind of grouping, we also do a lot of communication. Joel mentioned that variable messaging is a challenge, and myth busting is a big part of what we do. And so working on our website, creating one-pagers, presenting at conferences, and an annual report of the work that we've done. These are some of the ways that PCPA has worked to kind of share the work that we've done. We also do, of course, project management and recruitment and renewal events such as this. To the next slide, Morgan, Maggie. Thank you. So this research workstream is the workstream that I manage. Our goal is to really do the field testing, the data collection, so that we can use that data to inform decision makers, that's the agencies, communities, as well as the pros or CAA, who we have been working very closely with, and to expand recovery and recycling of polycoated paper. In all of our work, we work with CAA to kind of share them, the different studies and data searching that we are looking to find and follow kind of their finding principles for research. And we have shared kind of our methodologies for the different field audits that we have planned. So this year we have two bail audits. We just conducted one in bails coming from the West Coast in California, Oregon, and Washington. Wink, wink, the EPR states. We have another one planned this year. We have two RFID studies, repopulability studies, a waste characterization study, access searching, and our workstream meetings that discuss the methodologies and outcomes. And the benefit that we often hear from our members is kind of the ROI for the packaging formats that gets tested with the larger group. So, if a brand wants to do a repulpability study on their own, it might be way more expensive than to kind of piggyback with other members and have the data that is collectively shared with a larger group. And also the ability to use that research with CAA and other stakeholders and being able to have a kind of a collected, unified voice. Joel?
Great, thanks. Recovery workstream, our focus on the recovery workstream is really building as I mentioned, taking the research results and building them into a strategy for recovery. And that means working across strategic partnerships and stakeholder engagement with the pros, agencies, other partner organizations, and developing and paving that pathway for on-ramping more materials. And that's in EPR states and non-EPR states. But really with EPR states and some of the looming deadlines, there's clearly a priority there. Some of the highlights so far that have been pretty exciting is we now have a regular meeting on the books with CAA. We're working directly with their materials strategy team to build out that pathway. We took recent tours around Oregon with MRFs and end markets and toured NORPAC and building relationships there and getting ready to schedule some RFID tests for Oregon. I think one of the things that I'm most excited about as well is our conversations with CAA have been really productive, and CAA sees PCPA as the center of the polycoated paper material conversation. So I think they're really looking to PCPA for guidance and as the sort of center of the conversation around where to take this discussion with us, which has been great. We're also developing a design guide. We are in the final stages of a second version of our design guide and expect to be able to release that early in 2026. That's also something where we're coordinating with other partners and with CAA. The design guide has a lot of interest and I think has the potential to be integrated into CAA's program plan thinking and become the basis for eco-modulation thinking. That's a few steps down the road, but something we see as a potential future for that work. And then ultimately, community partnership and intervention. One of the missing pieces will be solving some of the problems at MRFs or mills or with community collection. And those are partnerships and interventions we want to make. And those are things that we are continue to look for the opportunities to identify. Those are not in our current budget, but they're something we see in the future of the recovery work. What this looks like, go ahead to the next slide. Timeline-wise, the red box you see there is our current fiscal year, and what's critical about that is how much work is happening in this fiscal year for PCPA across the leading EPR states. As many of you probably know, California is on the verge of publishing regulations. We expect to see those any day now, which will lead into program planning, which means final collection lists in California. Colorado's program plan is moving towards implementation. Oregon is already in implementation phase. This timeline presents a lot of opportunities for PCPA to engage and to work through those on-ramping conversations as in the next 6 months, really in the next phase of or the last half of our current fiscal year, which is a good reminder to say we continue to welcome new members. So though our fiscal year runs from July to June, we'd be happy to talk to members about coming in January for the last half of this fiscal year to support this work in this next critical phase. Going to the next slide. This is kind of a summary of how we envision our data and recovery work working together to really inform and build the pathway towards recovery. So, as I mentioned, we've begun building the partnerships, and we have those early relationships where recovery and research teams are working together to identify gaps and to fill those gaps with data. That data will inform. We will be delivered to CAA and state agencies and inform their decision making. Those pilots can be added on where necessary to further prove out pilot studies, things like that, to gather data and prove that our materials have a pathway, and that ultimately gets us onto collection lists. And I think I'll add one quick note here on California and 343 is a question that often comes up. We see 54 and getting on the collection list as the pathway to attaining the meeting the 343 criteria. So, as many of you probably know, the 343 has a potential ban if your material is not meeting certain collection criteria. We intend to get there by working with CAA to get on collection lists and then for be recoverable and meet the data requirements and the criteria of 343 by the 2032 deadlines. And there were a couple questions in the chat, I think. I see there's already some answers being typed in there. Great. Go ahead to the next slide. I'll hand it back to Maggie and the leadership team.
Thank you. Thank you, Marty, Helen, and Joel. That was a very informative overview. And so now we're going to shift into a conversation with PCPA leadership, Jason Pels and Shannon Moore. So I'd like to dig a little deeper into the value that PCPA creates at the coalition level. And Shannon, if you can turn on your camera, if you don't mind. So Jason, I'll start with you. From your perspective, what is the most meaningful value that PCPA delivers to members across the coalition?
I guess what I would say the most meaningful value is that it is simply the fact that you have all the different segments of the value chain at the table. So you have the brands, you have some recyclers, you have a small segment of MRF capability, you have people who convert the material, make the board, all that stuff. And so the value from that is that you get a whole lot of points of view, and where people might have tunnel vision on a specific solve. The truth is it does take a village to kind of fix a problem like this. So I would say that's probably the biggest benefit you get is you get the inputs from all these different angles of the value chain.
Yeah, Shannon, what about you from your perspective?
Yeah, I echo a lot of what Jason said, but from a brand owner's perspective, with all the regulations that are going on right now, it's really hard to know what to do and where to go, especially when, you have leadership that are focused on, compliance and the risk related to our brands. Having that perspective from converters, MRFs, and the end market is really key, especially when you think about some of the specific regulations like we discussed earlier around California. Having that perspective is critical to things like design, our internal policies, the value from a design guide for poly-coated paper is really beneficial as a brand owner.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I like, Jason, you said it really does take a village. And so having that support from everyone in the room is so important. So building on that, like what advantages do you think PCPA has given you or your organization that would have been difficult to accomplish alone? So like where do you see this collective impact showing up in ways that individual organizations really can't do independently?
I can start. Yeah. So from a brand perspective, you may be familiar with one of our biggest brands. It's Pringles, as you can see on my background. We have done a lot of work globally around this can. You may have seen we launched a recyclable can in Europe, but that was a significant undertaking. And really what the value here for us is it really, as the co-chair of the research work stream, is that data. What we've learned from all of the things we've done outside of North America. Some of you on the phone may be familiar with the waste regulation in Europe is you really have to have data. You have to have supporting data. You have to do a lot of work to have proof of recyclability. Things like Helen alluded to, like the cost to do your own individual tests. that adds up over time. And we all know, budgets, P&Ls, it's really difficult to get leadership on the brand side to engage in this and understand why we need to do this and why it's critical. And an organization like PCPA helps us open the door to all that data, work and collaborate to really mitigate that risk. And reduce some of the costs and the efforts that we have. And so, we're not going to be able to get all the data as brand owners, and having access to this and working together and collaborating is really important to be able to achieve the end goal, which is really, if you think about it, compliance.
I guess what I would add, and I think Shannon hit on pretty much all of it, is having the additional, the challenge of being able to do certain things, audits, bail audits, things like that. It's just much easier to do it as a larger group. I think the second piece, which is really, I think, an important thing, and I'll speak from the standpoint of Carton Council, we're a group of converters. And when you bring all these other groups into the mix, it also opens doors to things that we just didn't have the ability to get in. So when you have brands, when you have some of the other the end markets or some of the other folks involved, they might have a connection that we just simply didn't have. So when you're looking for some of the information, you just have a much larger network and can be a much more impactful network as well, to getting the info you need to be able to do this correctly.
Yeah, you're not, reinventing the wheel every time or figuring things out from scratch and not really understanding everything. So very collaborative nature in PCPA. And so looking ahead, let's touch on priorities. So as part of the leadership team, where do you believe that PCPA needs to focus its energy right now to really drive the greatest industry impact?
I guess I'll start. I think, the PCPA, I think we have the right pillars on what we're focusing on, increasing the data, really understanding what's out there, what really is out there for poly-coated paper or paper products. The data on that, understanding the pulpability, the where the stuff flows, where it sits is all important. I think where we need to expand though, we need to broaden our membership to add some segments in. Like, I would say that right now, probably at the level of the MRF, we don't have enough membership, and that's a key part to this, because if this is all going to work, a MRF needs to be able to accept and sort something and be able to sort it in a reasonable way. And so their voice has to be heard. And I would say that would be something where I could see if there's an opportunity, that would be very valuable and welcome input that we would look for.
Great. Yeah, Shannon, anything to add?
Yeah, I think the MRF piece is really critical. I agree with Jason. We would love to have more membership in that space. Just simply because, in my experience working directly with those facilities, even in the plastics space for plastic packaging, they tend to get lost in consortiums and work. Mostly people are focused on the end market, or I need to redesign my packaging because this is the new rule. Where the people who are actually going to be collecting and sorting this material, we really need to bring them in and not leave them out. So I would also add, as a brand owner, I always say, the more brands, the better we are as a group. Just because, in my experience, pre-competitive collaboration in spaces like this with other brands has been really key for us as a company. We've had a lot of wins in that space. And so I encourage any brands that are on this call to reach out either to myself or Jason. We're all trying to do the same thing. And the one thing we've learned at Kellanova is not to do it in a vacuum. You can't do it alone. In some regions of the world, we've attempted to do that, and we've had a lot of learnings from that. So definitely encourage more brands to join the conversation.
Great. Yeah, I mean, it seems like PCPA really plays to all of its members' strengths. And so I think having everyone in the room, like you said, Jason, MRFs and brands, everyone there is really important. And so finally, since we do have people today who are deciding whether they want to join or not, what would you want organizations to understand about PCPA's momentum, influence, and the benefits of joining at this stage? Shannon, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I can speak from a brand owner perspective. There's a lot of different groups out there. Again, I'll talk about plastics, you have SPC, you got APR. There's a lot of entities in it, and it's hard to find, a lot of times they overlap, or, you join as a brand owner, you join a consortium and you feel like there's a lot of talking and group work, but there's not a lot of action. And so what I've seen in PCPA over the last 2 to 3 years is there's definite work plans, there's a roadmap. We all work together and we're making progress. It's not just talking about what we're going to do; we're actually doing it. Like Helen mentioned on the research work stream, and Jason mentioned, finding out what's happening out there is critical. And we've done a lot of work in the last 2 years to understand what's happening, and that's like really the foundation of being able to partner with groups like CAA and do things like, for example, in SB 54, proving recyclability, proving that you've been able to improve the design of your packaging. Those are really the things that I see as value. We have actionable work we've done, and we have a really good roadmap going into the next 1 to 2 years. A lot of progress has been made, and I would say out of all the consortiums I sit on, this is like one of the top one or two where we're really making progress in a short period of time.
Jason,
I have
anything?
nothing to add,
No.
Shannon. I mean, really, it's yeah, no, nothing more.
Yeah, that was great.
I will add, I always say, everyone always has time. You do not have time to waste. And I think that's what I tell our leadership on a regular basis when it comes to the regulatory environment. Yes, we have time. We don't have time to waste.
And maybe I lied. Just one other comment. The other piece to this, though, that I think is important, and we've learned this a lot through our work with Carton Council. It's broad, but still focused enough that it's focused. You know what I mean? The one nice thing with polycoated paper lines is you don't have a lot of other constituents that are kind of coming in. It really is focused on polycoated paper. Now there can be variations, and we get that, and the pool's a little bit bigger, but it still is a focused, and there's enough similarities that the goals set to succeed are aligned with pretty much what everybody's trying to accomplish.
Yeah. Well, thank you both. That was incredibly helpful context. I'm sure you answered a lot of questions from people that were there in the crowd today. So thank you for providing your insights. We're going to move on. So you just kind of heard a clear picture of the value, impact, and momentum behind the Alliance and what membership enables across the supply chain. So that's kind of the why. We're going to shift into the how. So Marty's going to walk us through PCPA's membership structure and funding levels so you can see what joining looks like in practice. So Marty, I'm going to pass it back to you.
Thanks, Maggie. And hey, first I want to answer a couple of questions that I faultily did not answer in the in the Q&A. One was, is there a prospectus? Heck yes, there's a prospectus for everybody on the call, and Helen will be following up on that. And yes, there's again, we'll talk about these levels, but there very much is a follow through, and we're very interested in talking to anybody about how they might want to support us going forward, whatever that means. Second question was more to what about poly recovery and the poly that's left over after the fiber? There's other questions about sizing, et cetera. Yes, that's, as Shannon said, we've got I think a pretty robust work plan to understand the issues that are facing us and have an approach to how each of those might work towards a solution. And so, yes, those are things that we are working on, and we would encourage you to participate going forward, through membership in the PCPA. I really a couple of things I wanted to highlight as we go through this was one, the folks that you're seeing on the leadership committee and Scott from Sunoco and Teo from Procter and Gamble. These are folks that really from the very beginning, when there wasn't a lot of people there, Shannon put up a significant financial commitment and also a really serious commitment in time. The leadership committee has a lot of benefit in that you really have access to everything. You get to make and approve the budgets and to oversee the finances and to really be quite involved with it. But it also means that they chair the working groups. They're actually very involved with helping to make the organization go. And so it's one, we're really pleased that The GPI has joined that leadership group, and so that it's really great that we have that kind of support going forward, and we're still obviously looking for that kind of role. It does come with, as we said, some responsibility, and we're very fortunate that all of our leadership members that you saw identified actively participate in really all aspects of the organization. So it's a serious commitment. It's also a really serious benefit. I think, as you heard, they find benefit for their company and for their organizations, and we certainly find a heck of a lot of benefit for them. So this is a annual commitment. As we mentioned earlier, we're about at the halfway point, and so we're certainly open to this year's budget and going into next year's program to talk to folks about what level they might come in at and where. The co-founder level, before I slip past that, one other thing in the leadership level, to see that very last bullet is capital call projects and opportunities. And so part of what we see growing over the next number of months and into next year is the opportunity to show, in the ground proofs of how to recover these materials, or how to improve recovery, or how to improve the broader range of materials that we recover. And so these are active conversations that we're having with CAA and with other folks about how we might be able to put up more proof points of high level of recovery. So again, real benefit from being in that leadership side, and also real appreciation for the leadership they've already shown. The co-founder level, there's, I think, a lot of great participation here. As Helen mentioned, we have a lot of folks who across the organization engage a lot of people, whether it's in the research work or it's more in the field. There is a lot of input in terms of where do we do our research, what are areas of importance. And one of the other things that Joel mentioned earlier was this kind of recognition of PCPA as that voice. We understand very much it's very symbiotic. They listen to us because of all of the logos that are on that list. And the more we have all those folks, not only does it make us more credible when talking with those folks about solutions, it also provides the benefit, as Jason was describing, of having our solutions be durable. And I think that's what's really important to us is we're focused on the EPR states because it's important and it's relevant, but we're showing and trying to develop durable programs that will work not just in those EPR states, but that will work everywhere and can actually contribute to your corporate sustainability programs longer term. So again, we like to show that strong link of all of those stakeholders that have to participate and have to be on board. And I think, as Shannon said, I think we have a work plan that is very much directed towards those key stakeholders. We very much engage the co-founders and the alliance members in participating in that work. So it's not just go to the meetings, it's also, can you talk to people? Do you know people? Can you connect us? Can you share information? And this has been a place where a lot of information is shared that we're able to kind of, aggregate and talk about in aggregate and be very influential with stakeholders. And then the alliance membership, $10,000 a year commitment essentially keeps you in the game, keeps you access to the password protected program website and participation in regular meetings. So again, there are different levels of commitment, different levels of participation, but we certainly encourage folks to consider this, consider um, how you guys might participate. One of the things that we talked about last year as we closed up phase one and really dealt with the urgency of EPR and some of those other things was we're going to try to have no free riders as much as possible. We want to get out and have as many folks who are a part of this challenge be a part of the solution. So we certainly encourage folks to invite their friends, invite their customers, but it's an important amount of work. I think we report back
very aggressively on here's where we spend our money, here's what we're doing, here's what we're trying to get done. And so I think the control is real for the members, and that's important to me and important to us that we're responsive in that way. And so I guess with that, I would just say, if you have any follow-up questions, you have any concerns, any issues, Helen, Joel, myself, the leadership committee are also quite available to answer any of those questions. And I'd be willing to go off script. Scott, you've been here since the very beginning, and if you have anything that you might want to add, you've seen us go through these funding levels. You've helped us really throughout at Sunoco. So if you're available and want to come on mic, I'd really welcome that.
Yeah, it looks like you managed to unmute me. I wasn't sure if you'd have the ability to do so. I appreciate the presentation today. I guess, all I may add is that the group is still, relatively young. I think it was hurricane season 2022 when we were in Charlotte, braving, Jim Cantori outside, but brought a group together, and I think have already become seen as a leader among a number of other groups and stakeholders in this space. So people are looking to the PCPA for answers. I think we have a lot of great members and the program plan to get there, but I think speed is probably what's on everyone's mind across formats. And a lot of times the way to move faster is to have more people at the table, more firepower. And I think that's something that all of the folks that are not at the table yet today can bring to the effort. So, Marty, appreciate RRS's kind of leadership getting this all stood up and really kind of developing that phase 2 that we're now launching.
Great. Thanks, Scott. And Maggie, I think turn it back to you here.
Yes. There we go. All right, so now I know that everyone on the call is going to join PCPA, and you're wondering, well, how do I join? So first step is just to go ahead and email us at pcpa@recycle.com. We'll walk you through the process, answer any questions that you have, and we'll help you determine the membership level that fits your role in the supply chain. And as it's been mentioned, it's not too late to join for 2025, so please send us your inquiries. That QR code on the screen and the link as well is going to take you to our Get Involved page, which has more information on how to get involved with PCPA and join. All right, so looking at the questions here, I think we've addressed all the ones that have come in some way, shape, or form. But if you have a question, feel free to put that in the Q&A box. If any of our speakers want to touch on any of these and elaborate anything more, or feel like there's value in just kind of talking about any of the questions, feel free to do so. But I think that was super comprehensive, and I think all the presenters did a really great job at just kind of anticipating any questions that we might get. So I think that's why there's no more questions. All right, let's see if there's some. All right, I'm not seeing anything else come in, but at any point you can always reach out. We're always here to help. So thank you so much for joining us today. Again, a quick reminder that the full recording and the slide deck is going to be available on the PCPA website, so you can revisit that at any time, and you can also share it with your teams. Again, we're always happy to talk. Email us at pcpa@recycle.com. We're eager to hear from you guys. Oh, I see a raised hand. So I'm gonna figure out where you are. Yeah, keep moving. All right, Lee, I think you should be able to speak now, but you're on mute, so you just have to unmute yourself. Lee, we cannot hear you if you are speaking. That was an accident. That's okay. If you have a question, go ahead and go on and mute, or you can put it in the chat. All right, maybe it was an accident. So we'll move forward. So again, thank you so much for joining us today. We would love to have everyone here be part of the momentum and join the Alliance and continue building on the good work that's been done. So thank you again. Enjoy the rest of your day and goodbye.
Good day, everybody. Thank you.